And we're live on the Icecast Live, the very special Icecast Live, because it is the final episode of Season 2. Did you know that, Ollie?
I did know that because I read the chat. Well, maybe our viewers didn't know that.
No, well, they do now.
They do now.
Yes, this is indeed the final episode of the Icecast Season 2. The reason being is because we're coming up to the summer holidays and we all get really busy with stuff. I've got conventions and you've got your festival as well, haven't you, Ollie?
I've got my graffiti festival, yes. That takes up a lot of the summer holidays. The minute I finish working at school, I just spend 6 weeks preparing for that and hustling graffiti artists from all around the country.
Yeah, I mean it's a big task, and and you pretty much do it solo, don't you? You have a little team with you.
It's a very little team. Me and my co-director Panda, who's a graffiti artist born and bred for 30 years, so he knows all the graffiti heads. I do the organising, and together we make it work. And we're in our 6th year this year.
Has it been that long? Wow.
Yeah, time goes quickly.
And you're still using the custard factory for your main venue?
We're venturing out of the custard factory. We've had a bit more funding this year with the Commonwealth Games being in town. Our big plan is to just make Birmingham a cultural centre for street art and graffiti. Fantastic. To rival Bristol and Birmingham, Bristol, Manchester and London. We've, graffiti's been here for so long that I'm shocked that it doesn't ever come up. But Birmingham, I think, as I said to you before, is a very modest city. It doesn't shout about its great artistic heritage. So it takes a big northern gob like me to do it for them.
And yeah, indeed. And you do a very good job, mate. But tonight, as people may have guessed by the different background to the usual one, we are doing a very special show because we are live launching the new Dracula The Return book. And yes, it's a bit of shameless self-promotion because I'm the publisher, but hey, why not?
Do I have to ask all the questions then?
Yeah, well, yeah, maybe.
I should be able to just sit back on this one, shouldn't I?
No. You're going to earn your money. Oh yeah, you don't pay that.
Earn me hotel room for next week.
That's it. Now we've already had some comments before we start the show.
Wow.
From VJ Johnson, really excited about this, and thank you so much for all your hard work in making this magic happen.
Supernatural magic.
Thank you, VJ. It is a team effort. I must emphasize that. I'm a very small part of what makes this all happen. And from the Wee Gamers, the bunker, can't wait. Exciting timed. I think he means exciting times. The S is by the D on the typewriter, so that's a common one. Thanks for that. I think that We Gamers, that'll be Andrew, I think. Thank you, Andrew, and thank you for all your support of the book. It's really, really appreciated. So we've got a lot to talk about tonight, mate, because there's a lot going on with this book. So I think what we'll do, we'll just play the intro and crack on with it. Sam, play that VT, mate. And welcome back to the Icecast Live. And Sam's forgot to bring the guests on. So I'm going to bring them on now, and I'm going to slightly introduce them as I bring them on. So first of all, we have our main writer on the book, Mr. or should I say Dr. CHRIS McAULEY. Welcome, Chris. How you doing?
Hi, guys. Yeah, I'm doing fine. Mate. I do have to correct you on something. You're not a small cog in this. You're one of the major parts, so...
Well, I am large physically, yeah. So yeah, and I'm not really cog shaped either. So yeah, I guess I'm wrong there, mate. And you've been busy already, haven't you? Today, sort of helping us sort of grow the group, grow the
Hence the
Facebook group.
shades. Look, you know, people think this is an image thing. My eyes are like piss holes in the snow at the minute. I've been up. I don't think I've actually gone to bed yet in 2 days.
Oh my God.
Busy doing
That's
things.
what all the vampires say. I notice your curtains are shut so it's not letting in the sun.
Did you know, Ollie, I am actually allergic to garlic as well, and I cannot wear silver because silver warps in my skin. So DACRE finds that very funny and uses that.
I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine.
Oh,
oh, that is.
I find it funny.
It's fate, isn't it?
It might be. Yeah.
I'd also like to welcome to the show the main artist on the book, Mr. CHRIS Geary. Welcome, Chris.
Hello, thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you, mate.
Chris.
Hello.
Welcome back. Welcome back, because you have been on before, haven't you?
Yes, back in February, I think.
Is it that long ago? Wow.
God.
Because it was February. It was when we did that show. It was when I thought Chris is going to be perfect for Dracula, and we had a little chat after the show, didn't we?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah.
Because
I
the
can't believe that's February.
artwork.
And in that space of time, you've created some fantastic art for us, mate. You really have.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That's
And I hope you're enjoying the process. It's not too taxing for you.
No, it's drawing, so it's not down a mine shaft, is it? So
No, definitely not. Although you could do it down a mine shaft if you wanted to sort of get the effect, you know.
Yeah. Got a little lamp on my hat, that'll be fine.
So, in this book, we have, I think it's a 21-page main story, which is, well on its way to being completed. But we also have, and this is an announcement for tonight, actually, we also have some backup strips, don't we, Chris, that you've co-created with our other guest tonight?
Yeah.
Would you like to introduce our third guest tonight, Chris?
Yes, this is my friend Denise. So Denise has written for Buffy and Angel. So there you go. There's another vampire franchise. And we created this a backup strip called In Fear We Trust. So
looking forward to it. And here's Denise. Hello, Denise.
Hello.
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 Almost a full crowd now.
There we go.
So I'll ask you a question, Denise. How did you get to meet Dr. McAULey?
Oh, I got to meet Dr. McAULey on LinkedIn. I was going through LinkedIn. I have a niece who wants to be an artist, and being a loving and encouraging auntie, I was going through LinkedIn, seeing if I could find any contacts for her. And strolling through LinkedIn, I found a gentleman who had written this wonderful Cthulhu poem. And I'm a Cthulhu fan from way back. So I reached out to him to say, I really love that Cthulhu poem. And that was Dr. CHRIS McAULEY.
So a common interest, basically.
Yes, we were brought together by the Dark One himself. I mean, what can you say?
He says.
I mean, you've been trying to weave sort of some of this mythology, this Cthulhu mythology, in with the Dracula mythology, haven't you, Chris?
Yeah. DACRE and I looked at Lair of the White Worm. So there's actually two versions of Lair of the White Worm. One of them's significantly larger than the other. It was the last book that Bram wrote before he died. And there's a lot of sort of cosmic horror themes there. So what we decided to do in the Stokerverse was to take the White Worm and Dracula and start to look at the threads that Bram had sort of started to weave through his notes. And we brought the two together.
It's really cool. And I think that's what's excited people. A lot of people have commented, the whole idea of bringing, the White Worm and Dracula together in a story. It's a very sort of evocative idea, isn't it? People love that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it was something that we wanted to do to keep the Stokerverse authentic. So that Bram's voice was felt through the strains of Bram's voice was sort of felt throughout the Stokerverse, but also give Dracula an added dimension and a new flavor almost.
And for those watching who might not be aware, what is the Stokerverse in a nutshell?
It's a unified horror universe created by DACRE STOKER and myself, and comprises of novels, audio dramas, video games, tabletop games, comics, short stories. I think that's about it, and a documentary. I'm not allowed I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about the documentary.
All right, you do have to be careful when you got all these things going on. It's like, can I talk about that yet?
Can I talk about that yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a documentary on the table, so yes.
I mean, it's incredible that you got all this sort of multimedia stuff, and there's a lot for people to get themselves immersed in, isn't there, across all the different media? But if you're sort of only into one type of media, it's self-contained as well, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you don't need to go out and buy everything or grab everything. They're all self-contained stories. There are elements and strains that link. Versions Embrace was our first graphic novel last year. I was on the Icecast for that one.
Yeah.
And there's little links, for example, the sort of one of the prime characters, Elias. He's actually we put him in as the father of Quincy Morris. So little hints like that. Nuremberg, the story. Bram wrote the story. It was placed in Nuremberg. Nuremberg is where Emperor Sigismund created the Order of the Dragon. So little links to Dracula in even in Bram's short stories.
Cool. We've got a little comment early on from Cy Chinook. Now Cy did some artwork for us. Now, if anyone who's been following the sort of pre-campaign campaign, if you like, that beautiful painting that we've been using was created by Cy. And he says, have you still not had a nap, Chris?
No, I was talking to Cy about maybe 4 hours ago. No, Cy, I haven't slept yet. No.
Oh, mate, you have got to get some sleep in, seriously. So, even though now a lot of people might be thinking, where's DACRE? Because we did bill that DACRE was going to be on the show, but he's actually on a fishing trip and he can't get any internet signal tonight. But what he has done, very kindly, because he's such a consummate professional, is to send us 3 pre-recorded videos talking about the book and talking about his work. So we're going to play one of those for you now, so that DACRE can introduce himself. Sam, can you play the first video, please?
Hello, my name is DACRE Stoker, international best-selling author and great-grandnephew of Bram Stoker. I'm really thrilled to be involved with Scratch Comics and this Kickstarter for Dracula Returns, The Cult of the White Worm. It's really interesting to bring Bram Stoker's works back to life. What we're trying to do, CHRIS McAULEY and I, as we've co-created the Stokerverse, is reintroduce some of the lesser-known works of Bram Stoker, as well as bring Dracula back into the fold as Bram originally intended it. What we were working on, and have been successful in a number of things so far, is a full range of literary products, from comics to graphic novels, short stories and prose novels, to audio stories as well. And we've also moved into the world of games, with an RPG game from Nightfall Studios, a dice and board game from Crooked Dice, and also a computer game that's in the works from Trinity Knot Studios. So it's been really incredible to lean on my buddy CHRIS McAULEY, who knows a lot more about games than I do. But I really think that, when you consider how innovative...
Oh, we lost it. Did you stop playing it, Sam, or was it? Did we lose the video? I don't know about you guys, but did it pause for you, freeze for a second there?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah. StreamYard does have problems with videos still at the moment. It's meant to be smooth, but it isn't always smooth. So I'll have to recap what the DACRE was talking about there. So actually, Chris, you're probably more familiar with it than me. He's talking about all the other stuff, the video games, things like that.
But no, yes, that's one of the big announcements of tonight, is that along with the comic and linked to the comic is a video game. It's not with Trinity Knot Studios. that was probably my fault, because I had a conversation with DACRE, and yes, he was out on the lake, and the phone was starting to give way. It's actually with a company, award-winning video game company called Spacebot Interactive. So they specialize in creating retro style games. So most gamers know that retro style games are very much in vogue. And what we've done is we've created a sequel to the comic book that is going to be an action adventure game similar to Castlevania.
Ah, cool.
But the big hook with it is for all you Dracula fans. There's a lot of Bram's work that was redacted from the original novel of Dracula. So the publisher, Archibald and Constable, they removed a lot of what Bram wanted to put into the original book. And you'll notice that there's a bit of a gap. We never fully know how Jonathan Harker escapes the castle. So as part of the prologue in the game, you get to play as Jonathan Harker and escape Dracula's castle.
That's cool. And
you meet all manner of creatures. And yeah, I'll leave it at that.
It sounds really cool. Now, you did send me a little video clip of the game, but I wasn't able to upload it for one reason or another to the.
I'll put it on our group. Put it on the group.
Yeah. So, anyone who's watching who's not in the Facebook group, do come along and join us. Chris has been posting some wonderful stuff, audio clips from audio dramas by some fascinating actors. I mean, that last one you posted, Chris, was absolutely brilliant.
Is it Simon's one? Was that Simon Templeman's one? Yeah, it was Simon's. I mean, there you go. There's the link to Denise. So Simon was on Angel. I think he was one of the.
Yes.
He was an Angel. Simon's a very well respected Hollywood actor. I think he's been in almost everything. And somebody in the group asked, how I got him, because he's well known in video game circles for being the vampire Kane in the Legacy of Kane series. It's actually one of the reasons that I chose him as sort of as the Dracula for voices. And I wrote the script. The audio was written in one take. I think it was 2:00 in the morning. They just decided it was going to write an audio, and I wrote it all in one take and just sent it to all the actors, like Colin Becker and all the guys. They were all getting it in one go. And Simon rang me up later, but I didn't think I was going to get him. We were so lucky. He read out the script to his wife and his kids at the table, and they all said he had to do it. His wife, for Star Trek fans, is Rosamund Chow, who was Chief O'Brien, Chief O'Brien's wife.
Oh, right, yeah. What was her name in the show? Keiko?
It was Keiko O'Brien, yeah. So she has since sent me a little message, and apparently I have to get a little part for her now. So that'll be.
That's cool. Everyone's going to want to be in these little audio dramas. Yeah. We've had another comment from Mike Haggerty. Love being in the group. So much fun. Oh, thanks, Mike. Glad you've enjoyed it. It is growing. We've got a lot of people in there now. And when you get a lot of people who have the same interest, it gets very fun, doesn't it? Because people post cool stuff. People have been posting videos of their favorite stuff, comics. And, because there's been a link between Dracula and comics. I'm not going to do a history lesson on the show, but Dracula's been in comics for many, many years.
Because he's immortal.
Well, yeah. He won't die. But I've loved a lot of those. Somebody posted a Scream image from the Scream comic, and obviously the Marvel Dracula stuff was absolutely stunning. But I'm right to say, aren't I, Chris, that that version of Dracula, which was pretty much based, I think, on the Jack Palance movie version, doesn't really resemble Dracula from Bram Stoker's.
A lot of them don't, do they?
No, it's one of the reasons we did create Stokerverse was that the Stoker family have been very frustrated because there hasn't been that accurate depiction of Dracula. Even artistically, Chris has done an amazing job of actually bringing Bram's true vision of Dracula to the pages. So we do have that authenticity. But even when you look at the movie, that Coppola did. We try not to call it Bram Stoker's Dracula because it's very little to do with Bram Stoker. But Coppola's version of Dracula, they recast it as a love story, and that really started with Bela Lugosi, because Dracula is an extremely dark, narcissistic, sociopathic, purely evil character. And I think trying to portray that on Hollywood in that era was maybe problematic. Maybe they nobody wanted to portray those kind of characters. So that's why they said to we'll get somebody who's quite handsome, suave, and sophisticated. And then we have the rise of the romantic vampire with Bela Lugosi.
And that's carried on right through, hasn't it? A lot of series, like movie series and TV series, vampires are always very good looking. They're very glamorous. They dress well, and they're rich, and that is just an accident, isn't it? How that's happened, really, because they're savage creatures in reality.
The oldest vampire tales can come from Mesopotamia, but Bram drew an awful lot from his Irish heritage. The vampires came from the bogs. So if you know the Preacher comic books, Mr. Ennis drew a lot from the vampires from the bogs, and there's lots of little links that Bram puts in there. Even the Irish word for Dracula means bad blood, and there's a lot of little links. So he's actually, Dracula's more Irish than he is Eastern European, strangely enough. I think I'm allowed to give away this because this is a very special occasion. But Dracula wasn't originally the name of the character at all.
Really?
That's what happened was the publisher asked Bram that he had to get one word for the book. Basically, it was how to sell it, right? So he goes into the London Library, and if you go into the London Library, DACRE's authenticated the handwriting on these books, and it is actually Bram's. He was flown over to do this, and Bram lifted books. Was one of them was Emily Gerard's Land Beyond the Forest, which is actually a translation of what the Transylvania means, the Land Beyond the Forest. And he saw the stories about Vlad III and went, Dracula, that's a great name. There we go. His name was originally Count. It was the devil. So basically, it was Count de Vil. So Dracula was originally the devil's representative on Earth, which is what we kind of bring back now into the comics and through our literature, that he is literally the incarnation of the devil. So there you go. So there's a little bit of history about Dracula. Maybe some people don't know.
And a question for you, Chris Geary. I hate people using people's surnames.
Just call one Dr. Chris and the other one Mr. Chris.
But not Dr. Chris.
Yeah, not Doctor, yeah.
Mr. Chris.
Yeah, I'm trained in first aid, though. So.
Oh, there you go.
St. John's Chris.
Yeah, Red Cross.
I was going to ask you, sort of like when you approached the project, obviously, did you have sort of an image in your head of what you wanted Dracula to look like? And was it then a bit of a challenge to sort of go into the original version? Or was it sort of, I'm just going to go with the original version? Did it come naturally for you?
Not really. I mean, I had, when I sort of reread the book, I did mention in an email that I sort of, in a way, pictured Christopher Plummer from sort of Girl with a Dragon Tattoo or even Knives Out. It was a sort of like, because he was like quite a distinguished old noble person. So that's the sort of way that I wanted to do it. Because in between me sort of signing on to the project and getting the script, I watched quite a few Dracula films, like Bela Lugosi, the Nosferatu, the one who we shall not name, Coppola one, and a couple of Hammers as well. And it's just a case of where when Dracula appeared on screen, there was always the music like, this is Dracula. That signaled that he was a bad man. And I thought it was interesting that the way that I reread the book was that he wasn't signaled as a bad man. He was just an old man who was answering the door to his castle. So I was trying to sort of approach it like that there wouldn't be this sinister organ music playing in the background when you open the door to Jonathan Harker. So that was the only thing that I was sort of thinking of. And then when I was given the sort of images that, had been commissioned already, then that helped sort of see where he was going to help him look a bit more savage and things like that.
Yeah, and I mean, you've done a great job of it, mate.
Thank
I
you.
really like your version of Dracula, and you've also had the challenge of, I don't want to give too much away at this stage, but of showing Dracula in different sort of guises as well, different versions of the character. So that's an extra challenge, isn't it, to sort of like interpret him in all those different versions.
Yeah, and it's, in a way, it's just trying to figure out what is the writers want as well. Like because sometimes like when sometimes writers say go crazy, or even though that's not in the script, but it's just like one of those things of like, exactly how crazy do you mean crazy? So it's things like that where you sort of sometimes you do need a bit of specificity sometimes, just in case you go down the wrong route and stuff like that, which is what happened when I was initially designing Dracula. Like, being given that guidance to begin with was very helpful.
And we've got some. I'm gonna open the screen to. I think it's Ollie. You've got the screen open for the Kickstarter there.
I have, yeah.
We've got some.
I've got it open on Chris's early designs for Mina Harker.
Yeah, I mean, I loved that straight away. That was. I think that was your second take on Mina, Chris.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Just nailed her. That sort of strength in her face.
Yeah, there's a very sort of noble strength in that face, isn't there?
Yeah. Reminded me very much of some of the characters, like in Hellboy. You've got characters like Liz in Hellboy. She's got like a real strong character, and she has that sort of strength in her demeanor. And I think you just captured it really well there. I really like that. And sorry, carry on, Ollie.
There's Jonathan needs a shave, probably because Dracula got rid of his mirror quite early on in the novel. chucked it out of the castle because he was having none of that. No way, Jose. Shows one of us has read the book anyway.
Yeah. Recently, was it, Ollie, that you read the book?
I've been teaching it to A-level students for years. But funnily enough, the GCSE from about 3 years ago used it as a extract, and I've been covering it with year 10 and year 11 in lessons. And that particular meeting of Dracula, when he sneaks up on Harker as he's shaving and he cuts himself, we were discussing the build-up intention of that, and how obviously a 19th century audience wouldn't have known he was a vampire, whereas a 21st century audience, it's impossible to look at an extract like that and not know that Dracula's a vampire. So I find it fascinating how everyone coming to this book, The Return of Dracula, are going to know, hopefully, quite a bit about him, and that he does have a moustache. And with that in mind, let's show some of the artwork with the moustache in place. Yeah, there we go.
This is an exclusive preview of the first few pages from the book. Now, I should state that the artwork and the lettering is by Chris Geary, and the colouring is by Matt Sofe. And what a great job he's done on that colouring. What did you think when you saw that, Chris? When you first saw that?
Yeah.
He's sort of done your work proud, I think, hasn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It would be. It's actually a very lot different to how I would do it, but that's one of the good things about having someone else work on stuff as well.
I love that page. I love that.
Yeah, very good. Yeah.
It's great how he's got that sort of setting sun sort of thing going on. Well, it's a rising sun, isn't it? Sun, yeah. But it's absolutely superb. Lovely pages. Now, these pages are on the Kickstarter, so if anyone wants to go on there. Now, we have now launched the Kickstarter. It is available. Now, there's quite a lot on there for people, which we will go on to later on in the show. But I'm going to try and play another video from DACRE. Sam, if you can.
So let's talk about Bram Stoker for a moment, and what would he be thinking with some of the interesting things that we're working on right now in the Stokerverse. And you've got to really consider who he was and what he was. Obviously, he was an author of 12 novels and numerous short stories, but his main job was that of a theater manager, the Lyceum Theatre in London for Henry Irving, who became the first actor ever knighted. So he was really at the top of his game in the world of theater, but he also had a passion for art. he won awards as a young boy, as did his sister for art. He was a founding member of the Dublin and Painting and Sketching Club. So not only was he an author and an athlete and involved in the philosophical and historical societies, but he was an artist, and I think that alone would make him very, very pleased that his great grandnephew and others, CHRIS McAULEY and all the others, tied up with this.
Yeah, unfortunately, that video didn't want to play either. Not having much luck with these videos, are we? What we'll do, guys, we will put these videos onto the Facebook and into the campaign, so that anybody who follows the campaign can see what DACRE was saying there. Chris, I believe you probably are able to fill in some of that information that DACRE was trying to express there.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the stuff that we're doing on the Stokerverse, we do think about, what would Bram think about it. I mean, there's a reason he's sort of sits beside me. It's a rather attractive bobblehead from the Bram Stoker estate, by the way. So yeah, there's a bit of product placement, but we do try and think about it. Bram was very innovative when it came to story and presenting story in different styles. So I think he would be fascinated with the world of comic books and graphic novels. When it comes to audio drama, well, he was the theatre manager for the Lyceum. So that form of performance, and indeed how he copyrighted Dracula on stage, was to have a live reading with his man, it's Sir Henry Irving. It was Henry Irving took the role of Dracula on stage. If it comes to video games, well, and games in general, it would be fascinating for him to. I believe it would be fascinating for him that players could actually come and meet his characters and interact with them. And role playing, the RPG games and role playing is a form of theatre entertainment around your table, as well as a game. So I think he would have really loved that.
DACRE was saying to me the other day that he felt very genuinely that Bram would have been a lover of comics and graphic novels, just simply because he had such a great interest in art.
Yes,
and he wrote in a very visual way. When you read the book, you can see the images in your head. He's just the way he describes things. I think he. Well, we don't know, do we? But I think he would have loved comics. To be honest,
I think so. Yeah,
I think he'd have been a geek.
I think he was. Yeah, he was very open-minded when it came to, as I say, the presentation of narrative, and if you look at people look at Dracula and say, well, that's the best work that Bram did. I don't think it is. I have my own personal opinions because I love most of Bram's works. I actually think some of the fantasy stuff he wrote was very poignant, beautiful. There's a story about an old man whose wife dies and he travels to the land of the dead, and that's something that Neil Gaiman would have been proud of at the time. And then obviously the cosmic horror stuff with Lair of the White Worm, the implied cosmic horror there is absolutely fascinating. And he had links as well to the occult and magic. He was a Freemason. He was involved in Golden Dawn. If any of our watchers are familiar with the tarot cards, he was actually involved with the tarot cards. Waite's tarot cards. The lady who painted the tarot cards was the same lady who painted the backdrops to the Lyceum Theatre and painted plates for Lair of the White Worm, Pamela Coleman Smith. So she has this beautiful. If you want to look at some of these things online, there's a beautiful image of Lady Sylvia Marsh, and she's wearing this almost serpentine dress, which is showing that she can transform between serpent-like form and human-like form. So Bram was involved in an awful lot of things. Those are elements that we try and pepper the Stokerverse with.
I mean, I'm really excited actually about all the potential of the stories we're going to be able to tell with these books. But at the moment, what we're doing with this book is we're sort of continuing, aren't we, from the straight after the novel. I mean, as you can see from the preview pages there, I mean, the preview is pretty much a recap of the novel, and it takes quite a turn, doesn't it, Chris?
Yeah, I've had the question asked, of me, how does Dracula come back? Isn't he dead? And if you read the book very carefully, you see that Dracula's heart was never punctured with a wooden stake. His throat was cut and he was stabbed through the heart with a knife, but it wasn't with a wooden stake. Now, people say, well, what's the difference? His heart's pierced. But there's an old Irish legend about the ash tree and about how an ash tree has to be used to pierce the hearts of an immortal. And the head has to be cut off. It's actually from very old mythology. So yeah, that's the reason why. So he's not dead, folks. And,
it'd be a really short comic if he was, wouldn't it?
For really eagle-eyed people who read through the novel, when they're traveling to Dracula, there's stakes, and then suddenly they're not there. And we have the understanding that Mina is still slightly under Dracula's control and removes the stakes. That was something that DACRE brought to my attention. So we move on from this to aspects of Dracula again that were cut from the book. There are creatures. Dracula was also Bram saw Dracula as a scientist as well. So in Dracula's castle, there's a laboratory. And Dracula is not in the original interpretation of the novel. Dracula is not alone. So again, fascinating, because if you look at the old movies, you have the coachman, and the coachman looks like it's actually Dracula as well. Harker's alone in the castle of Dracula. They're not brides; they're weird sisters. They get called brides, but they're not actually brides. There's no relationship given in the book between the woman and Dracula, so they could be sisters, lovers, or perhaps both. Who knows? In the notes, there was a fourth bride who we show in this comic as well, and in a very particular way. I've taken the notes, and DACRE and I have turned that into a particularly fascinating and gruesome character. And also there were ape creatures that Dracula created, and it's these ape creatures that aid in Dracula's resurrection. There's a scene that was taken out of the original book called the Red Room scene, and it was a sacrifice of a young woman. And Dracula presides over the sacrifice like a satanic priest, and all the ape-like creatures are watching in rapt attention. They worship his satanic majesty as he presides over this. So we've been bringing those strains back in as well. So this is why the comic is extremely important for the history of Dracula, for Dracula fans. I think DACRE had talked to us, Shane, about this being, this piece of work being historically significant.
Yep. He did indeed, which didn't help me at all, because I was already feeling the weight of responsibility for sort of publishing this book. It's such an important book.
The old quote about many are called, few are chosen. We came to you for a reason. We were extremely happy with CHRIS Geary's work because it's brilliant, and we believe that it does that it is an important part, and with the colorist as well, and all of us coming together to do this is extremely significant for, I think, as well, literature in general, because it redresses the balance, and it brings back what Bram originally wanted to put in the books. I would have loved to have seen what Bram himself would have done with the character and continued on with the character.
Do you think he would have produced more works with the character? Because it's hard to say, isn't it? Because he was so young when he passed. It's hard to know if he had those intentions to create more work.
I don't know. Would you have? I don't know. I think that what he set out to do, he accomplished. He wanted to rival Poe when it came to Gothic horror. And he did that. He did that, and he did that in more ways. In a more, the graphic novel we produced last year, The Virgin's Embrace. And I apologise for anybody who gets offended by the original title. It was known as The Squad. It was Gothic horror par excellence, and there was foreboding. There was a lot of atmosphere, and a fantastic build up. And there's so many stories, like the Growing Gold. I go back to Jewel of Seven Stars, which is actually a cosmic horror piece, an Egyptian cosmic horror piece that the Mummy movies took from. The Universal Mummy movies. I've written the DACRE and I wrote the prequel to this. Actually wrote the prequel to Jewel of Seven Stars, and we do link Jewel of Seven Stars into Dracula as well in some of our other Stokerverse products. The games, actually, you get to go around the London Museum, and there's a reason that Dracula wants Carfax Abbey, which may be in the next comic. If we do another comic, we can go into that.
That's fascinating.
There's a reason. Voices of Dracula, Claudia Christian's character, serves as a prequel and a coda at the end of Dracula, and you get little hints of that and what is actually going on.
I mean, you've created, like, in the Stokerverse, haven't you, this sort of really wide universe, and not just in like one period of time. You've gone like into the future of the character and into his history. I mean, it's quite a big timeline that you've sort of had to put together, isn't it?
In a very short space of time as well. I think we really started this about a year and a bit ago. And what we've been doing with the products is we've been moving from prequel stuff from even before the Egyptian times. Dracula's Bedlam, which is a novel. It's kind of a mixed graphic novel, prose novel that we had DACRE and I had written with John Peel. You actually see the origins of the vampire in that, in a little graphic novel section. So we go back to Neolithic man, and we look at the possible origins, and I have to be careful what I say, the possible origins of the original vampire, and people reading between the lines. And anybody who's read maybe the latest anthology of story that I've written that's been out, actually is a bestseller. It's a best-selling anthology. Will know exactly what I mean by that. I don't want to spoil it for anybody else. But we then move, we're moving now into the First World War. We're moving into like 1911, and then moving on past that.
It's so rich for storytelling, isn't it? All of that history, and And Denise, your story that you've written with Chris, which is going to be in this first issue. It's a little short story. Where does that fall in the timeline?
Well, it falls. Well, it has Renfield as one of the characters in it, so of course it falls in the course of I would say probably after the incidents in Dracula. What do you think, Chris?
I have to sort of contradict you a little bit.
Okay.
So, and maybe I didn't. Yeah, maybe I didn't really explain this, but so what we're looking at is that Dr. Seward's asylum isn't the first asylum that Renfield's been in. Renfield was the first in the book to encounter Dracula, so he was a partner in the solicitor's firm. Went to see Dracula. Now in Dracula's Bedlam, we look at the character of Renfield as somebody who was brought up as a very strict Catholic. He had tendencies towards women, gambling, and drink. He was a senior one of the senior partners in the Hawkins law firm that Jonathan Harker is a junior in. And Renfield's father is very disappointed with him because all of the rumors, because of the debt and all sorts of things. So when Renfield meets Dracula, he meets a new father figure. He meets a god a god and a father who is permissive, who encourages him to indulge in his wild sexual tastes, and introduces him to a new form of religion. So the blood is the life. a form of religion that makes sense to Renfield. So moving away from the God of thou shalt not to a God of you can have anything you want, my son. And that's like the ultimate cult leader, isn't it? And it's it's that form of manipulation, and that's what we dive into with Renfield. So after that, he goes to Hyde Park and starts to scream and shout about the apocalypse, and gets taken to an asylum. And this is the asylum that Denise and I have looked at. And there's an event that happens there that puts him in the care of Dr. Seward. And it's the progressive illness. And there's the other reason that we wrote it. The Stoker family history is fascinating. We had Thornley Stoker, who was a Irish chief medical officer. He was the head of the Irish Surgical Society, and he was very much involved with mental health, and he wanted to change the course of the mental health industry because it was horrific back then, absolutely horrific.
Yeah,
and all sorts of things.
I mean, that was a horror in itself, the way that people were treated in those establishments. Wasn't it?
It's actually one of the reasons Renfield was created, because Bram would have heard the stories from Thornley and actually would have gone around to asylums and seen things. So that it was one of the reasons that Denise and I wrote that, because it's about the mental health system and how mental health professionals then would actually abuse their patients in the name of treatment. And that backfires on this particular individual in a quite horrific way.
It is an horrific story. I mean, I've read the script, obviously.
Yes.
And it's pretty horrific. But there's a certain justice to it. Let's put it that way. I won't say any more. And Denise, you've written some stuff before, haven't you? In comics, is that right?
Well, I was my late husband Scott Cienson wrote. He wrote the Silent Hill comics, and I worked with him on those. And he also worked on the Demon Wars comics by R.A. Salvatore, and so I worked with him on that. So but I've had love of comics since I was a little kid. So I grew up in this world. So I just absolutely love it. I absolutely adore it, and I think it's for me. I think it's a perfect venue for telling horror stories, because there's such an opportunity to create visuals. And I think especially in horror, you get the opportunity to not just, sometimes it's a lot of times what you don't see is horrifying. Like if you look at some of the Silent Hill comics that were the way the artist drew them, you can't always see exactly what's going on, but from having played the video game of Silent Hill that it's not going to be a pretty thing. So I think sometimes I enjoy when you can show those blurry images, and it's hard to do that in a book of saying there's no such thing as a blurred image in a book, really. Yeah. But in a comic, you can do these visual images that where as a reader you can't quite tell what's going on. And I think that's even more interesting, because what you create in your head is going to be far more interesting than maybe you could sit down with the artist and say, well, what did you mean by that? It doesn't really matter what the artist meant or not, or what the writer meant when they put it down on paper. But those visuals just allows so much of the imagination, which I find fascinating.
And I love how, we've talked about it a little bit before, how you get that sort of idea from the writer and then the artist breathes total new life into it with their vision.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
It could be something completely different to what the writer is doing. But I mean, I've discovered that, with this book, with what Chris wrote and then what non-Dr. Chris drew, and then what Matt did with, there's an evolution all the way through that creative process.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things I love about it. When Scott and I were working on the Demon Wars comics, we were fortunate enough that CrossGen Comics at that time was located near Tampa. And so we lived a couple hours away. So each month we would go up to Tampa, and we would be able to sit down with the editor, Ron Mars, and with the artist, and with the colorist, and with the letterer around a conference room table, and to be able to discuss it, which was amazing, as opposed to just having the images, sent to you, and then you just figure out where the lettering goes. It really felt collaborative. It was really these conversations where you'd have these discussions. And I think it made the work so much better because everybody felt like they had a voice.
I've heard that about CrossGen. I've got some friends who worked at CrossGen.
Yes.
And I've heard the similar reports, that it was a wonderful place to work while it was still,
yes, it was
liquid.
Walking through the corridors, it was like going through a comic book museum, because they had pages from classic comic books everywhere. Wow. And so you just stroll through the corridors, just be like, oh my gosh, look, that's this one, and oh my gosh, that's that one, and it was absolute, but it was as I said, so collaborative, because you could sit down with an artist, and there he is sitting there with all of his reference materials, and then they have their whole little art studio set up, and you can sit down and say, well, I have a character that I want to create for the next issue, and then you can bounce the ideas go around, and they're sitting there sketching it, and then you see it come to life while you're sitting there talking to them. It was amazing. It was such a wonderful experience.
It is great when you see artists who can do that. I mean, me and Chris actually did a little show where we just did. Well, I didn't do any sketching. Chris did all the sketching, and it was a lot of fun. And I was really impressed with how quickly Chris was able to, create these images on demand during that live show. I mean, did you enjoy that, Chris? It was a bit different from drawing on your own at home on a drawing board, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's very similar to sort of, when you're at a convention. When people come up and ask for sketches, or if we're just sitting there sketching away in between being asked to sketch. So there is that sort of interaction. It was good fun.
Good. Glad you liked it, as I roped you into it. So, talking to conventions, we have got a big announcement to make before we look at the Kickstarter campaign tonight, and I'm hoping that the video will play. Now, what I'll do, Sam, I'll play the video, because you seem to think that it might have been from your end that we were having those problems. So I'm going to go in and play the third video from DACRE. Sam's putting his hands up in the studio going, nothing to do with me. Don't do it.
So the cool news to announce actually here at this Kickstarter launch for our comic with good friend Shane Chebsby of Scratch Comics is that I'll actually be visiting the UK and attending the International Comic Expo in Birmingham as their guest. And Shane's asked me to actually host a special 125th anniversary panel/presentation at the show, which is being offered as a reward in this Kickstarter. I've done this lecture/audiovisual presentation around the world. I bring 12 years of research, my digging into and uncovering really interesting facts, lesser known things about Bram Stoker's life, his research and his writing of Dracula, that, things that happen to him that he's woven into the very fabric of Dracula, things that CHRIS McAULEY and I use in our stories, and of course in the Cult of the White Worm. This presentation.
I think there's a time limit on the videos,
It's very similar. It seems to be a very similar time frame.
Yeah. I think it's 1 minute. I did say to DACRE, can we keep him to 1 minute? But obviously, it's a lot to get into to what he wants to say. So really excited that DACRE is going to be coming over as a guest to ICE. He's going to be doing the presentation about Bram Stoker and about the Stokerverse. And you're coming over as well, aren't you, Chris? I
will be there. Yes, I will be there. So it should be fun. DACRE, Denise, and myself will be there along with Claudia, Christian, and it should be fun. Yeah,
it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a real. I mean, it's going to be great to meet you in person, mate. It's going to be great to see you in person, Denise. I'm so chuffed that you're coming over. It really means a lot, that you guys are coming over to see us. Because it'll be sort of a general launch for the book in the future then. But of course, now we're talking about the Kickstarter, and the Kickstarter guys get their books first. So we'll have a little look at the campaign because there are a few things in there I should probably go to before the end of the show. So let's see if I can get this up on the screen. Right, no, that's just the artwork. Who's got the Kickstarter?
I had the Kickstarter. Let me open it up again.
Okay, mate.
I just need to find it in my history because I thought Sam had taken over, you see.
Yeah, no worries.
It won't take a while. Whilst I'm looking for that, I'm interested because you're talking about, I think you've got it, haven't you? You're talking about Dr. Chris, about narrative structure. And Denise, you mentioned how sometimes less is more. And what I always found fascinating about the structure of the original novel is you hear everyone's voice except Dracula's. Is that maybe a structure you intend to adopt for this comic, or what other ways might you maintain a mystery around our anti-hero Dracula?
I think it's the fact that there's more to Dracula than we saw in the original. So the hints of his past. Now, part of that comes from chapter 2, whenever he introduces himself to Jonathan. And there's a varied history that Dracula gives. It's not the history of Vlad III. It's a history where he ties himself into gypsies and all sorts of things. And there's a reason for that, which we'll delve into. I think there's a mystery behind his purposes in London. I'm going to use modern day parlance for this, and I inwardly cringe when I do. But he didn't come to London for a booty call. He had no interest in, let's say, Mina, sexual objects. The reason he was coming to London was squarely to take over the Victorian Empire. He wanted to take over.
Yes.
Now, that gets lost. Why he wanted to be involved with Lucy was because he knew the connection between Seward and Van Helsing. If you look at the book, you'll see that whenever Van Helsing is brought in, Van Helsing is very distressed and immediately says, in a form of hubris, he can save Lucy. Dracula knows that he can't. Dracula and Van Helsing have had a form of sparring because Dracula turned Van Helsing's wife, and that's the reason. There's a backstory and a history there, and whenever he turns Lucy, he knows that Van Helsing has to say to those who loved Lucy, your darling beloved has become a creature of the night and undead, and we have to destroy her by sticking her heart, cutting her head off, and sticking garlic in her mouth. So Dracula is getting Van Helsing to first of all desecrate Lucy's memory, and then desecrate Lucy's body. So what he's banking on is that Lucy's those who loved Lucy's friends, would turn on Van Helsing, say he's a crazy old fool, and walk away, leaving Van Helsing very much as a won, and Dracula would have won. Mina is a pure revenge motive because Harker got away from him. And there's a scene that I depict in Voices of Dracula. It's in the group when we talk about Noah's Dracula love story. You have to remember that Dracula is an undead corpse. His penis doesn't work. There is an oral fixation. And, it's very, very Freudian. But the reason that there's an oral fixation with vampirism is that their reproductive organs don't work. And they're cold, dead corpses. So when he grabs Mina by the hair and cuts open his chest with a dirty finger, because he likes dirt, right? It's a long, dirty finger. And a lot of people don't realize is that Dracula has hairs in the palms of his hands. That's part of the description that Bram gives. And he forces her head up against this cold, dead chest, and there's blood and pus oozing out of him. He forces her to drink that. And when the heroes burst in, he displays Mina to her husband and to Van Helsing, who stated that she was the light of all lights, and throws her to the side of the room. Jonathan goes running to her, And this is the strength of Mina, because she's gone through not only that, but she's gone through the revelation that her husband possibly was involved in infidelities with three weird sisters. You know, there's possible, you know, and has he, you know, in the midst of that, traveled to see him whenever he was in the nunnery, and they got married. There all sorts of things. The strength of Mina, and then obviously Dracula still being in control of Mina. Mina being quite religious, was very distressed by the fact that a communion wafer would burn her, would burn her to the touch as well, and that's the reason why, if you look at our comic book, you see that mark, and then it disappears.
Yes,
that's really interesting. That
So going back to your question about Dracula. Dracula's voice is heard in the novel several times, but fleetingly, but very powerfully. So we have a narrative of Dracula within the castle. One of the most powerful parts of the narrative of Dracula is whenever he throws the weird sisters from Harker and presents them with a baby. This is the true power of Dracula. Dracula is not an anti-hero or a romantic hero. He gives them a baby that they tear apart like a piece of KFC chicken in front of Harker. That's I always love using that. The real imagery.
I'm sure KFC love that comparison.
I'm sure they do. But yeah, so you do see that, and then you see it with Renfield. You see the dialogue with Renfield, and you see it with the challenge of the band of heroes, and then you see it at the very last. So there is a bit of a narrative of Dracula, and it's punchy. It's very, very punchy. It's right. Okay, now we've got to this point of exposition, because there's a lot of exposition, and then boom, we bring Dracula in, and we see the horror again, and then we pull back a bit, and we see how that horror has affected everybody. And so we try and do that within the comic.
Does he have the same mission then, to take over the British Empire, or has his mission changed?
The reason he wanted to take over the British Empire is explained. So it's to do with Dracula's gods. So Dracula has his own deity, gods, for want of a better word, of the void, and this is where vampirism comes from. We go into, you know, what makes a vampire, what creates a vampire, what are they, who are they, and you know, that's a question that was struggled with Coppola's film, because they have this, you know, the turning against Christianity, the inversion of Christianity. But Bram looked at paganism and Christianity at times in conflict with each other, and at times synchronously together. He was somebody who was quite pantheistic. So we're looking at it from that avenue, that it's not necessarily an inversion of Christianity. In fact, if you read one of the Stokerverse stories that has come out recently, you see how you actually see a link between the Christ story or myth, and try not to offend anybody, that is linked then to the Dracula tale. For example, why are vampires allergic to silver? Well, go back to Judas Iscariot.
And why are you allergic to silver? So we will have a look at the Kickstarter. I think, as we are here to promote,
you got that up and running, have you, Shane?
Sam's controlling it, so I'm going to talk him through it. So we've only just launched, and we've got backers already. Wow. Okay. Well, thank you to those backers. Now that artwork that's on the front there, that is by Cy Chinook, who has left a comment. Actually, I'm going to read it now. My favourite depiction of Dracula so far in comics is the
DACRE STOKER, the great grandnephew.
Oh, hold on. That's not going to place Sam. It's
Bram
within
Stoker,
the
author
thing.
of Dracula. I have some great news to share with you. I'm working with Scratch Comics on a Dracula comic to be funded by Kickstarter. The story that CHRIS McAULEY and I have written is a continuation of Bram Stoker's novel, and includes bits and pieces that appeared in Bram's notes but didn't make it into the original novel, of course, artists in comic book form.
This comic will include 36 pages of art, plus lots of really interesting bonus material. It'll feature the original depiction of Dracula as described only in the book by Bram. The art is by CHRIS GEARY, colors are by Matt Sofe, cover art by Shane Oakley, and it'll be available to all of you in July. Rewards for all of you that participate are digital version of the book with added bonus material, a chance to meet and get books signed by the creators in person in the UK this September at the ICE Birmingham event, and rewards will also include sketch covers and original commissions by Chris and lots of other really cool goodies. Don't miss out on this.
Thank you, DACRE. That video worked better than the other ones. So I should point out at this point, actually, that about those rewards from Chris, because Chris had a wonderful idea about commissions. Now, would you like to share that with our viewers, Chris?
No, because I might have forgotten exactly what I said.
Okay, I'll give you a hint. The biting.
Give you a hint.
Yeah, well, I wasn't sure exactly what you meant because I wasn't 100% sure of what you were agreed to as such, so I didn't want to say. So you say what I need to do, and then I'll just agree.
So okay, I'll tell everyone then. So basically, yeah. Chris, this is your idea, Chris, and I thought it was wonderful. Was that people can ask for a commission, and the commission can be them being bitten by Dracula, or alternatively, if they want to be Dracula, they can have their likeness as Dracula biting somebody else. So I thought that was really cool. I think that's a really cool idea, and we're going to add it to the rewards in the commission. Yeah. Are you still all right with that, Chris?
Yeah, fine. Yeah, and it's just I suppose in a way it's clarification of which version of Dracula. Like, do they want our version, which would be good for branding, or whether they want their favourite version. You know, open to all versions, including the Count from Sesame Street as well.
Yeah, I thought that would be,
you'll get a lot of that now, Chris. Now you mentioned the Count from Sesame Street.
Yeah,
I think that would be awesome.
If you want to be drawn as a Muppet, then that's fine.
So there you go, folks. You can be any type of vampire you like. So that's really cool, Chris. Thank you. So I'll go through some of the rewards. Sam, if you could just slowly scroll down the rewards as I go through it. So now we are doing an early reward. We're calling it the where's it gone? We lost Sam. Let's see if I can get it back on the screen. Where's it gone, Sam? He's looking around aimlessly in the studio. Oh, he's doing that. Yes, indeed. Now stop messing about and get the Kickstarter back on the screen, Sam. Oh, he's very good at finding things that we talk about midstream. I have to say,
Chris, I'm going to take you up on one of those commissions. You know, maybe not as kind, but yeah.
It'd be so cool, and the great thing is it's so unique. You know, something like that. Okay, let's bring the Kickstarter back on. So we are doing an early bird offer where just for today,
offer
the early bat, yeah.
Come on, so get those awful puns in whilst you can.
So for just £8, you get the regular edition of the book with the Shane Oakley cover, which we will be revealing next week, and a PDF of the book as well. So you get the full package. At a slightly discounted price if you pledge within the next 24 hours. So that's a chance for people to sort of go for it if you've got a lower budget, you can go for the book in that way. And then we've got the main Just a Bite, which is just the digital only. So the digital only is a PDF, a full PDF of the book with a bit of bonus material, and that's only £5. And then we've got the Undead reward, which is the regular version of the book, which is £10, and it's a square bound 48 page book. So it's not your regular sort of floppy comic, as it were. It's quite a substantial book, and for that reward you'll get the cover and you'll get the PDF. And then we go on to some other awards. Now we do have a variant cover. Now, this is an announcement because we've not let this slip yet. Ben Stenbeck, who is an amazing artist, who's worked on Hellboy, BPRD, and lots of other stuff with Mike Mignola, and he's a great horror artist in his own right, is doing a variant cover for us, which is a bit of a coup, and I'm very, very happy about it. You can get that cover. It is limited to only 500 copies worldwide. That's really special. But if you want to scroll down a little bit more, Sam, because there's lots of really cool stuff in there. There is one. What's this one? The White Worm physical book and the PDF. No, there's one a little bit further down, which is, keep going, Sam. So here we are, the Bloodsucker Award. Very special award for those of you who love original art. We're offering a very limited number of sketch covers from series artist Chris Geary. The reward also includes the regular Shane Oakley cover, so you can have a sketch by Chris on the cover of your book. These are limited because Chris hasn't got infinite amounts of time, but he's been very generous and offered quite a few.
Not immortal just yet.
Not immortal just yet. But thanks for that, Chris, because I mean, people always love those. The sketch covers. It means you get a comic and it's a unique item. And then keep going, Sam, a little bit further down. We've got all sorts of rewards here. So what's the meaning? That's a retailer award. There we go. Now this is a special one that apparently someone has already bid on, pledged on. Sorry. And that's a dinner with DACRE. Now he did talk about it in the video a little bit, but I think we might have lost it. So at ICE before the show on the Friday evening, 4 backers have the chance to have dinner with DACRE, and
the local KFC.
Yeah,
so yeah. Babies.
And then he's going to tear into a burger in front of them.
They're actually the official Dracula sponsors now. I've used that so many times, that visual imagery. So many times.
No, it'll be a really nice restaurant in Birmingham, I promise. And you get to have dinner with DACRE, and he will sort of regale you with stories about Bram Stoker, and it'll be a really, really, really unique experience, and you'll have a memento as well of that dinner with DACRE. He's going to be giving away some special pins, which I think we've got an illustration of in the campaign. Sam, do you want to scroll down on the campaign? It's near the bottom, I think, just to show you these pins that DACRE's had made, especially. There we go, past the artwork, a beautiful artwork. There we go.
Oh, they're nice. Everyone loves a pin.
A metal pin, yeah. Isn't that lovely? And it's done in the style of the original book. I really, really like that.
I like that.
Yeah, so you'll get one of those as well if you pledge on one of the top tiers.
Your hand looks very nice in that photo, Shane.
It's not my hand. I haven't got nails like that. I'm not Dracula. I'm assuming it's DACRE's wife who's modelling the pin there. Or it could be DACRE, who knows?
Or it might be a hand model.
It might be.
Joey from Friends.
I don't think the Stokerverse has hand models yet.
I haven't got to that stage yet.
But it might be Jeannie's hand, it might be DACRE's wife's.
Yeah, I'm guessing so. Brilliant. Thanks for that, Sam. I won't go on too much more about the campaign because you guys can get on the campaign and have a look and check out what you want. But there are some wonderful rewards, lots of original art, lots of sketches, lots of experiences. You can get tickets for ICE to come and meet all of these guys at the show. So there's lots of opportunities to do more than just buy the comic. So I'm going to read out those few comments that we've got. So Sai, who did that artwork. My favourite depiction of Dracula so far in comics is the adaptation by Fernando Fernandez, which was released in UK early 80s and published by Dragon's Dream. Are you familiar with that one, Chris?
Who, me? No, I'm not at all, actually.
I'm not.
Look into that.
I personally like Paul
that
Dacre's version in Anno Dracula when that was adapted for comic. I think it gets the big boldness of Dracula and the tash as well. It makes him look very savage, very powerful. I like that one.
Yeah, I think, there's been so many depictions of Dracula in comics. I mean, everyone's aware of the movies, aren't they?
Well, the Gene Colan one is the one a lot of people think about, don't they? Tomb of Dracula, because he was so synonymous with horror during the 70s and the 80s with Night Force at DC.
I'm a big fan of Gene Colan. We talked a bit about Gene Colan, didn't we, Chris? When we were talking about, you know, how to, because obviously it's a very different depiction. Oh God, look at that! So it's true. You were right, Chris.
That's starting to make me quite hungry now.
I've heard of barbecue sauce on your KFC, but blood, you know, come on.
It's the secret. It's the Colonel's secret ingredient, isn't it?
The blood of virgins. That's the secret ingredient. So we've got a few more comments. I'll go through. So Stephen Reed, good luck with the book. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you very much. And We Gamers the Bunker, but that's Andrew, I believe. Looking good, folks. Thank you, mate. Another comment from VJ. The RPG is really exciting. I'm new to DMing, but looking forward to incorporating some of the ideas into your games. Okay, that sounds good. It's nice that people are enjoying the RPG, Chris.
Yes.
Yeah. We've got that's a quick start, so you can get it for $1. We'll be running a little once we reach 1,000 members in our group. I'd be giving away. It'll be kind of like a roulette wheel. I'll spin it, and then one of our 3 of our group members will get. No, I'll sort it. 5 of our group members will get free copies of the RPG Quick Start, which is actually it's the playable sequel to Dracula. Again, links to the comic somewhat. The core book, the RPG core book from Nightfall, it's going to be a beautiful 230 or 40 page hardback book, illustrated by Clint Langley, written by myself, and Andy Brown did some stuff, and the Nightfall team, and it's coming out in October. Best time for it. So I mean, lots of stuff there.
Clint's work on that is absolutely stunning, isn't it? It's, I mean,
visceral. It's the visceral nature which suits the RPG really well. It's that visceral dynamic nature, and then obviously the Stoker verse encompasses more than just Dracula. You know, we've got our various other characters in there as well. Frankenstein's creature and all sorts of things. I think I sent you bits and pieces in that Shane to have a look at. But cool. You know, that's going to be quite a big event this year as well.
I love the work you did on the RPG.
Well, thank you. You know more about RPGs than I do, to be honest. But yeah.
You big into your RPGs, are you, Denise?
I used to be. When I was a teenager. I played Dungeons and Dragons. I had a group of friends. Right. Yeah. So
the classic.
Yes, classic. Absolutely. And
my daughter's just getting into that now with her the class that she's in for sort of what you'd call it high school. She's 16 going on 17, and once a week with the teacher involved, they get into a bit of Dungeons and Dragons. I think it's wonderful.
It was absolutely wonderful. It was. I mean, I think it really helped encourage my creativity because it just encouraged you to you read all these stories, about. You read Frankenstein, you read Dracula, you read anything, and then you can go in and incorporate it into your character, incorporate it into the stories that you're living, that you're playing out with your friends every week. It was, I think, it's a wonderful melting pot for to encourage you just to throw open the floodgates and let any creative idea come in.
Because you're always using your imagination, aren't you? You're constantly imagining scenarios.
Exactly. And I just love it. And of course, my late husband, the first book that he ever wrote was Shadowdale, which was for Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
And when they decided to change, they wanted to change the dynamic of the Dungeons and Dragons game and to have all the gods fall from the heavens and become human and have to live out lives as humans. They wanted to create a book series that would tell those stories, and he was one of the writers.
Oh, I remember that. Was this back in the 80s?
Yes,
I remember those.
He wrote Shadowdale and Tantris.
Right, great covers. I remember.
Yes, yes.
Ollie's older than he looks, you see.
I'm a vampire, that's why.
Denise is great because she just doesn't co-write stuff with me. You know, she's a proofreader and she's a sanity reader. So pay tribute to her. And then there's a friend of mine, Ian, who's watching at the minute, and he's another sanity reader. He'll tell me if it's okay or not. And then we've got Andy, who's our games manager. So Andy Brown, and he's fantastic. You know, he goes and gets us the various companies and gets them interested and tells us. But yeah, RPGs are fascinating. I've written the parts of the official Terminator RPG, and I'm not allowed to say anything more about that. But yes, there's more coming. There's more. I am doing more Terminator, and not just in the RPGs. So,
I'll be back.
Yeah,
I'll be back. Yeah.
I'm waiting for Terminator versus Dracula now.
We did in the latest Doctor Who annual. We did Dracula versus Doctor Who. Dracula and the Master team up, and then Dracula versus Dracula and the Cybermen as well. So, and we actually have an audio. John Peel and I have written the Doctor Who audio, which should be coming out this year, which is Dracula and the Cybermen.
Cool.
So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, exciting crossover. So we've got a few more comments before we log off. So Dr. Chris is scaring me from Lee McKay. Good job, well done then.
Yes.
My agent will be happy with that.
And from Andy Hayes. Hi, Andy. Andy's a regular viewer on the show. Hey, guys, are there plans to adapt the original novel in comic form? That's interesting. It's been done a few times by a few people. And I've seen a few good versions and a few bad versions. But, I mean, it's not something I've considered, to be honest, because it's been done so many times by so many people. But it's an interesting idea.
Yeah, we thought about it. We thought about doing the complete Dracula, so it would be everything that Bram wanted in. So we're probably looking at doing that maybe in the next couple of years. So we want to kind of bring it out in different media first, and then do a sort of a unified. But I mean, it will be one hell, literally, of a project. The amount of pages that would take to be.
God, yeah, it's a pretty big book as it is.
It would be
huge.
It would be onerous. But if the fan base wants it and they want to see exactly what it would be like, yeah, it wouldn't be beyond the realms of possibility.
Well, what I'll say is, anybody who's watching, support this book, pledge on the Kickstarter, and we'll have more options to do more stuff. Because there are intentions to do a lot of Dracula comics. Final comment, another one from Lee. Can't wait for this. Getting on Kickstarter pronto. Thank you, Lee. I look forward to seeing you there.
Thanks, Lee.
Brilliant. So we've gone well over the hour, as we always do. I say that every episode, don't I, Ollie?
You say that every episode. You've reined it in quite well at just 1 minute 22.
Yeah, not too bad. But we had so much to talk about, and it's been great to have you guys on the show. Do you know, if we'd have actually had DACRE and Matt on here, it would have been like another half an hour talking to those guys as well. So it's probably fortuitous that they couldn't actually make it on. It's a shame about. I do apologise about the first two videos not playing in their entirety.
Well, if people want to know more, they can always back the book and get down to ICE this September and hear the man and the team in person.
Yeah, you can come and meet DACRE, and that'll be fantastic. It's going to be a really good shindig, basically. This September when we all meet up, and by then there'll be lots of copies of the book available. Thank you, Andy. He's just told us that he's backed the book. Cheers. Thanks very much for that, mate. So thank you guys for coming on the show. Thank you, Dr. Chris. Thank you, non-Dr. Chris.
Okay.
And thank you, Denise. I really appreciate it. And as always as well, thank you to my co-host Ollie the Impaler McMoney. Thank you for that.
Before I get into the mood.
That's great. Forum in there actually, so well done.
Do you know what I haven't done this whole episode? I haven't actually put the link to the Kickstarter up. So there it is, folks. Before we go, if you want to back the Kickstarter, there is the link.
Or they can go straight onto Kickstarter and put in the name of the comic that they can see. Dracula The Return, Cult of the White Worm, and you get it quite quickly. There aren't that many Dracula titled Kickstarters at the moment.
There aren't.
So it should be easy. It should be easy to find.
Yep, definitely. So thanks again, guys, and I will hopefully see you all in September, if not before. Thanks for being guests on the show, and I'm looking forward to making this book happen. It's going to be really exciting. Cheers, guys.
Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All the best, everyone.
Ooh.
Is this where we all have to pretend to pause
now,
Shay?
Well, I was gonna never mind. I'll just play this. Bye.
You just played it. Bye.